On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use. Welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers and our hometown of Green Bay. This is episode 23, created on October 5th, 2022. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me are Jeff in Minnesota and Neil on the East Coast. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm in honor of the upcoming game in London. I'm having a Samuel Smith's Teddycaster oatmeal stout.
I didn't have the wisdom that Jeff did. I only went with a German beer. I'm having a Lemke Berliner Weisse Himbeer.
All right. Well, I am thinking ahead. I'm having a gin Alexander, but not a London dry gin. It is actually from the Green Bay Distillery, Green Bay gin. And the Green Bay Distillery is a place that we will talk more about later in the show. Right, Neil?
Absolutely.
All right. You can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat and Facebook at the GBC podcast, Green Bay Chat. And now just the audio is available on Spotify and Anchor by searching for Green Bay Chat. So we're going to wrap things up this week, taking a look at the Packers and the Patriots, as well as week 4. And then it's time to finally look ahead to the London game and week 5. And we'll get you updated at the end of the show on our social media footprint that is ever expanding. But before all of that, let's talk about Sunday. It was a beautiful day in Green Bay. The weather was gorgeous. The tailgating, let me tell you first, I want to say this, Neil. I know I said a lot of bad things about the Milwaukee crowd last week. I take back most of it.
They redeemed themselves.
They were on time. They were in the stadium. It was a full stadium at kickoff. It was a beautiful day of tailgating. Now we'll get them trained on when to cheer and when not to cheer, as opposed to the offense being on the field and the defense being on the field. That'll come next. But getting them into the building at the start of the game was beautiful. I actually did go to the game, and I because of our tailgating, I didn't actually go in till about 3:00, and it was pretty smooth for me to get in. And I made it in time for kickoff, beverage in hand, and everything ready to go. Like I said, just a beautiful day in Green Bay. We had great tailgating weather. Neil, your parents even came by to say hi. Tried to get them on the shot ski, but that just wasn't going to happen. But they did sample the Grandma Lambo's apple pie, which is a must for anyone coming by the tailgate party. But enough of all that. Let's talk about the game. I watched it from the inside. You guys watched it on TV. Neil, what'd you see?
We both saw the same thing. It was like, what the hell happened in the first half? Yeah. I mean, literally what happened in the first half? Aaron Rodgers, 4 of 11 for 44 yards in the first half. No touchdowns, 1 interception and a sack, an 11.2 quarterback rating, his worst quarterback rating in a first half ever in over 200 starts as an NFL quarterback. It's as if we decided we're going to watch Justin Fields or we're going to watch Daniel Jones on the game. It was just, this is not the quarterbacking that we're used to. And thankfully that got turned around. There was discussion about what was stated at halftime. Aaron sort of doing a sort of standard, wow, we just got to play our game, which always concerns me. But thankfully in the second half, they did play their game. Rodgers in the second half and in overtime, 17 of 24, 207 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So we eventually got to where we needed to be, but that was a game. It was an odd game. That certainly is not what we expected for a game against the AFC in Lambeau in October, a day that, as John said, was a beautiful day outside. And usually when we play our best football, it's, a home game in the fall is when we see usually the best Packers football. I felt really comfortable thinking the Packers are going to win. And yet they made it really, really difficult. And we were behind for a fair amount of the game. And we were behind despite the fact that, Aaron Jones had 110 yards rushing. A.J. Dillon had 73 yards rushing. Christian Watson had a touchdown. There were parts of our game that looked really good. Alan Lazard had 116 yards receiving. I mean, if you look at those big numbers, you say, well, we should have had a pretty good game, and yet we didn't. Aaron Rodgers was still only sacked 1 time in the first half. So what happened as far as our game is concerned? And obviously consistency is the key element that we did not have in our game. But even looking on the other side, right? You look at Bailey Zappi and Brian Hoyer. They were combined 15 of 21 for 104 net yards as a result of 4 sacks. 15 of 21 for 104. We should be winning a game like this easily. I mean, you look at those bare numbers, and this should have been an easy Packer victory, and that's not what happened. And I I guess looking ahead to the Giants game, what concerns me is the fact that the Giants were able to run the ball, despite the fact that we knew that the Patriots were able to run the ball, despite the fact that we knew that they were going to run the ball. 33 rushes, 167 yards. That was the one statistic that stated why this game went into overtime and why we needed a defensive stop in the overtime and then a long offensive drive in the overtime just to make this a game that was a victory for the Packers. That really, in the end, that was even a close game.
I will say the one thing I did over here in the stands, Neil, was who the hell is Blaine Zippy? That's exactly what they said. So he was definitely an unknown commodity. And I think traditionally that defense has difficulty with unknown commodities because they don't prep for it. They don't have the tells, the nuances, and they just were trying to play a game. Now, with that said, I think the defense, I know you've got some defensive statistics there as well, being able to see Rashawn Gary and Quay Walker just run over the field was beautiful. They were in some great spots at times. They made some heavy hits at times. They did things that they needed to do to say that this defense is demanding that they get some respect on the field. And I think that defense is going to continue to grow, but certainly they did struggle with some plays here and there. Going back to that first half, though, too, the offense, those receivers, Neil, and I texted you guys this during the game, the receivers just couldn't get open. No idea what was going on. And then Rodgers, I don't know if he was throwing, forcing passes or, if they were open, it was in the wrong spot. And then the pick six was something that I don't want to say that we saw it coming, but we saw it coming. We had from the northeast corner looking kind of left to right from behind Rodgers, watching as soon as they lined up, my friend Dave says, "Oh, I think this is an out pattern to the far side." And then as it's going on, I said, "Well, that's not going to be good." And Rodgers kind of floated that ball out there. It looked like it took 10 minutes to get to the sideline from where we were. And it just got picked off.
He threw it to the inside shoulder when it needed to go to the outside shoulder. That was the big thing. I mean, that was actually a case where there was space for throwing the ball correctly. Normally you'd expect him to throw it correctly, and it just didn't happen.
No, from our angle, there was no space. He just should not have thrown that ball. He should have gone left. That was my thought on that. Yeah, it was definitely slow motion the whole way, and the ball's halfway in the air, and we're just going no. Yeah, we kind of saw it coming, but we survived that. Only the fourth pick six in his career. Jeff, you retweeted that one for us. Do you remember the names of the other the other three players, or did you say that?
It was such a shock. I mean, we saw history, not the right kind, but I mean, right. That's something, thousands and thousands of passes, and this was his fourth pick six ever, and it wasn't pretty. I think two of them have been against Tampa. I'll take a quick look and get back to you, but it was shocking. It was just like that, something that never happens. Well, the other thing that, there was a couple plays that obviously was a huge one. If he doesn't throw the pick six, that's, they have 7 less points. But then there was, of course, the play on with the back-to-back delay of games. However, only one was called. That was super weird. And the fact that they scored on the second delay of game, the play that should never have happened. That, and when Dobbs dropped the touchdown, I mean, this could have been a 31-17 game quite easily. And it wasn't. It was, fortunately, they found a way to win, not a way to lose, which was good. And, lots of people say, oh, good teams find a way to win. They should never have been in that position in the first place to have to find a way to win. They did. No style points, doesn't matter. They scored more points, they win. But yeah, it just felt weird. Like they should have won by way more than that with a third string quarterback. And they just, I don't know, they played, it wasn't even playing down to the competition. It was just like
they just stunk in the first half. They just stunk, and they stunk for extended periods, right? Starting overtime, even we had a 3-and-out. We punt, they return it to midfield. It's like, oh shit! I mean, how is this happening? How is this happening? And yet that was what it did. And thankfully, the Patriots decided, well, we're not going to rely on our third string quarterback, and they didn't push it downfield, and they had to punt it back for us, and we drove the length of the field eventually, but.
Way more difficult than it needed to be.
And Jeff, you've been big on Romeo Dobbs on the rookie this year, and his numbers have been impressive. But it was finally Christian Watson getting the ball and getting into the end zone, and he looked
Not
good.
via pass though.
But
so
getting in the end zone is the key thing for these rookies, and I think getting into the rhythm and getting the trust of Aaron Rodgers, a guy that has always had his trust. Randall Cobb, another great day on converting first downs for the team.
Yes.
He gets open when he needs to get open, makes the play that he needs to make. But again, outside of the everything positive you can say is outside of that first half, because the first half was downright miserable.
It was just so weird to watch. It was like, what is happening? This is not the Bears game. This is not the horseshit Giants Bears game that we had just seen. That for the year of our Lord 2022 quarterbacking. No, it wasn't even close. I mean, it was like 60, 70 years ago quarterbacking. We'll have more on that. There's our teaser for coming up. But yeah, it was weird, but we won. So
overall in the game, though, I think Aaron Rodgers just seemed off throughout the entire game. He had the great drive in overtime. There was the other great drive at the end of the fourth quarter that got us tied. But outside of those two drives, I think he seemed off to me. Didn't seem like he had the spark, didn't seem like he had the sharpness from watching inside the stadium. Did that translate on television? Did it look the same to you?
He definitely had a demeanor about him that was sort of the demeanor that you see when, for example, playing against Tom Brady in the playoffs, or in the regular season game against either New Orleans or Tampa Bay, when he just was not himself. And thankfully he turned it around. But this was a common thought during the game: is that who the hell is this?
It's like, who took his mojo, right? I mean, he seemed to be sleepwalking through it. Like there was not, he'd roll his eyes and the cameras would show him not happy, but there didn't seem to be this fire, this passion, this, like I said, mojo that you have to play with. I don't care who you are, whether it's Rodgers or, the worst quarterback in the league, at least seem like you're trying.
Let's say it this: it was Cutler-esque as far as his emotions were concerned. It was Cutler-esque,
which is frightening, which is very descriptive. Good one, Neil, but still disturbing on that level. The fact that we're even bringing up Jay Cutler and Aaron Rodgers in the same sentence. But no, you're right. Just real blasé, real just sleepwalking through it. And obviously it showed. It was his worst quarter of football in his career.
I just want to say
excuse me.
Dave and Scott and Justin and Chris and John and myself and the rest of the tailgate crew, we did our part. We got the PBR rolling early. We got the crowd warmed up. We got them ready for a great day of football. Even walking around the stadium, caught a gentleman just catching some fresh air before the ball game. It happened to be Wayne Larrivee. They said, "Hey, that's Wayne Larrivee." I said, hey, Wayne, can we get a picture? Sure. And as we're getting a picture, another group of people are like, "Holy cow, that's Wayne Larrivee." So I ended up taking a picture for them. Very nice, but I could tell he was kind of in that zone pre-gaming. I felt bad at the moment. I was like, oh geez, I kind of interrupted his pre-game routine or whatever, but he was real nice about it. And then the key part of that, and this is a tip for everybody, when you're at Lambeau Field on game day, if you post something to Twitter, Instagram, things like that, use the hashtag #GetLoudLambeau, because that's what they search for, the social media crew searches for, and that's how you get on the Jumbotron. And I got on the Jumbotron twice in my picture with Wayne Larrivee. I didn't get the big picture in the middle either time, but I got up there, and it was from the GBC podcast account, which is the better part of it as well.
Nice,
that anyone happened to be paying attention
at
happened to see that as well.
At Green Bay Chat, as it were.
Green Bay Chat, yes, correct.
So did you ask him for like a job?
No, I didn't. Like I said, it was just like, get a picture real quick, and then the other people wanted a picture. And I was just like, he's in the zone. I'm going to let him go. I didn't want to chat his ear off too long, but we made our way over to the, like I said, the radio station 97.3 The Game. They've got their tailgate party going on. Said hi to Josh and Steve Zabin, their morning guys. And they had a good thing going, just a good crowd all the way around. But just, we did our part, so Aaron's got to pick up his part. But he said something this week that has really come under scrutiny, and he said that it's not sustainable. And I agree with him. If the receivers can't get open and he can't hit the receivers and he's playing lackadaisical, you're going to get away with that playing a subpar team. But when the big kids come to town, that's not sustainable. You're not going to win through the playoffs playing football like that.
Well, and with the turnovers, I mean, I was reading earlier today that they've turned over the ball 7 times so far in their first 4 games. Last year they had actually the lowest number under or the highest number, excuse me, under Matt LaFleur, I believe is 13. So they're like halfway there in a quarter of the season. So you'd like to think that that's going to change. The fumbles are going to stop. He's not going to keep throwing pick sixes, that there will be a turnaround. And the defense has stepped up, except for a couple weird drives, right? Some of the drives, they fall asleep. I mean, literally, they just walk right down the field.
Well,
I'm not sure.
Let's just go to this. They had a third string quarterback back. They had no receivers, and yet it was still a game. I mean, if the other team, if the Patriots or whoever were playing, we played like we did, and the other team actually has a quarterback, we're losing that game. We are not winning that game if the Patriots have a quarterback. If Mac Jones starts that, your hope is that he throws an interception, although without Amos and Jair, the odds of that go down.
Yeah.
But you're hoping that we are able to do something about that. But we were extremely vulnerable in that game. And thankfully, we were facing a third string quarterback. I think at some level, it's a second week in a row that we've been extremely lucky to face a team that's been decimated by injuries at key positions.
One of the things that we talk about when we look at the rest of the week is who played really well and who shit the bed. And my question to you guys was, can a team that won their game be the bed shitter of the week? And there's a lot that wasn't good about this game. And definitely if they had lost the game, they certainly would have been nominees for that award.
So speaking about other games this week, who was the team of the week? Who was the bed shitter of the week? The team of the week was Arsenal in winning a 3-1 match over Tottenham Hotspur, North London derby. That was absolutely glorious. Saturday morning, this was the way to start off your weekend, beating the scum in the North London derby. Bed shitter of the week was the Mets. The Mets had a 3-game set against the Braves. If they win one of those 3 games, they are in the driving position as far as the playoffs are concerned. They've got 2 of the best pitchers in the league, and they decide to go and lose all 3 when you need to win just 1 game. It was terrible. As a Mets and Arsenal fan, it was a very Jekyll and Hyde type of weekend. As far as the NFL is concerned, my bed shitter of the week was the Ravens. The Ravens played against Buffalo. They had a 20-3 lead in the first half. You get into the fourth quarter, and they go into a situation where it is 20-20. So the Buffalo had brought the game back because essentially the Ravens hadn't scored after the first half. The Ravens have a 14-play, 93-yard drive that consumes 9 minutes and 29 seconds. They have a 1st and goal and throw an interception on a 4th and goal. They could have kicked the field goal in order to take the lead. They could have scored on one of those other games. They completely shit the bed as far as their offense is concerned, but you figure, well, it's the Ravens, their defense is going to do the job. And they do the same thing. They allow a 77-yard, 12-play drive and a game-winning field goal with no time remaining, no chance for them to come back. Lamar Jackson was his usual great self running, but passing 20 of 29, 144 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. The Ravens had that game at home. And once again, there's a situation where the Ravens in a home game shit the bed. So the Ravens are my bed shitter of the week.
Just kind of the game in general, that's the bed shitter of the week. Neil and I watched the Giants and the Bears, so you didn't have to. So we're kind of scouting, we're going to be playing the Giants, let's take a look. Boy, it was really ugly. So there were a couple interesting things. So the Giants,
Jeff, you're using the word interesting in a very liberal manner here. I
I
don't think there was anything interesting about it at all. There were things that we cared about as Packers fans that are relevant, but they're certainly not interesting. There was nothing about that game that was exciting.
Yeah. So the Giants had 71 net yards of passing. So that's even less than the Bears, believe it or not. So the Bears actually did better from passing. So between Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor, 9 of 16, 1 interception and 1 fumble lost. They were only sacked once, which was amazing. See, before Daniel Jones got hurt, he had 6 rushes for 68 yards.
But now as we look ahead to week 5, this is a game that has been on the calendar since the moment it was announced. It is the London game. The Green Bay Packers are making their first appearance in London for a football game. Once it was announced, there were 500,000 people who committed to going to this game in a stadium that turns out only seats about 60,000 people. And as we get ready to talk about the game, we also have a guest with us, Peter, who is from London. Peter, say hello and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. And I'm actually drinking water out of a Packers cup, but just water for me at this time of the morning.
Well, it is, and we should note that he is at 2 a.m. his time for when we're recording this, so we appreciate you hanging out and sticking around with us tonight. But talking about the Packers making that first trip into London, like I said, it's a big deal for Green Bay fans to get to finally play over there. You're a Green Bay Packer fan who is from London or lives in London. Compare, I guess, how it is now, what you see people like yourself who've become Packer fans compared to other NFL games that have been in London in the past.
Yeah, this is a huge deal. So every game in London attracts fans from every team. So when you go to those games, you'll see shirts from all 32 NFL teams. But there's something special about this one. One, because it's the Packers, right? And the Packers haven't played in London before. Secondly, you know, there is a Rodgers factor in this for non-Packers fans, so the opportunity for them to see Rodgers play. Yeah, and thirdly, the Packers fan base in the UK and across Europe has been growing exponentially over a number of years now. Winning helps. So the last quarter of a century or so, from Favre to Rodgers, those eras, that absolutely helps.
Yeah.
You know, if you go back to the 80s when American football, as we call it, kind of took off here in the UK, started being shown live on TV, there were lots of Bears fans. I shouldn't use that word, but there were lots of Bears. There were lots.
That's okay.
There were lots of Bears fans. You know, they all remember that '85 team, and
Oh yes,
you know,
They
the
live off that
fridge was
85 team, Peter. They
yeah.
live
To
off
this
that.
day, they still live off that 85 team.
right. Yeah, absolutely. So there's lots of Bears fans. There were lots of Washington fans, Raiders fans, the teams that were, you know, winning at that time. And there were a number of us kind of diehard Packers fans who were kind of hanging on in the hope that we'd make it through the 80s. And so I think to get to this point, to actually see our Green Bay Packers come to London and play is absolutely incredible. And you know, if that stadium was holding, I mean, you mentioned 500,000. Certainly, if that stadium was holding 150 to 200,000, they'd fill it without question.
It brings up a question that we asked right away. Why would the NFL choose the smaller Tottenham Stadium versus Wembley?
Yeah, I think that's a question that we've all kind of been asking ourselves and don't really fully understand the answer. I think part of that comes back to the commitment that the NFL made with the Tottenham Hotspur and with that stadium when it was built, 3-4 years ago now.
Okay.
That stadium would host 2 to 3 NFL games for each of the next 10 seasons, and I think that's the reason behind it. Yeah, I think we all hoped that it would be at Wembley because you've got another 20,000 or so, you know, capacity at Wembley, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and it's Wembley. I mean, just for the players, then to say we played at Wembley, right? I mean,
yeah,
Tottenham, yeah, okay, we're playing in London, but I would think Wembley would have an extra cachet to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is something special about Wembley, just the name Wembley, and certainly for you know, there's a soccer match. I think it's at Wembley Friday night. The 2 women's teams are playing. The England women's team is playing the States women's team. I think that's at Wembley. I'm not 100% certain. I think it's at Wembley Friday night. But yeah, everybody wants to play at Wembley.
As for the Packer game itself, Peter, are you lucky enough to have a ticket? Will you be at the game on Sunday?
I do have a ticket. So
excellent.
It was one of those situations where, you know, we knew that when the tickets went on general sale towards the end of July. And previous to that, they had premium ticket sale, which was very expensive. Those came out about a month or 6 weeks before that. And it was a case of just making that decision. Do you just plump for the really expensive ticket at that point and make sure you get it? Or do you wait for the general ticket sale when you know you're going to be in amongst 80, 90,000 others trying to get a ticket? or do you wait for a resale? And the resale tickets are going at ridiculous prices. So I bit the bullet and went for the super expensive premium tickets, but it might be once in a lifetime that
I was just
Packers
saying,
play
you know,
it.
it's a one-shot deal, right?
So among your friends who are also in the UK and are Packers fans, did most of them get tickets, or is this something where people have been squeezed out just because of the size of the stadium and the demand?
Yeah, so I think that there were a lot of disappointed people. I think 26th of July they went on general sale, and there were a lot of disappointed people on that day. And what I'm seeing on the forums now is more and more tickets becoming available either through resale or people that have say they bought 4 tickets, but now only 3 of them can go, and that kind of thing. So more and more people that I know that couldn't get tickets at the time are now finding their way to getting tickets, which is a great thing.
Right, because the resale market is very different in England than it is in the United States, right? There's this general feeling that you shouldn't do resale through things like StubHub, right? The touts are, something that are considered this horrible thing, where it's something that's considered standard in the United States for sports. So
yeah, it's a difficult one. So StubHub is an official reseller here, but those tickets are expensive for standard tickets, and then you've got others that you're taking a chance with. And I have seen, I've seen some people on Facebook, complaining that they've been ripped off, unfortunately. But I guess that happens. It's a sad state of affairs. It really is. And I think it's one of the things that everybody comments on every year, regardless of which teams are playing in London, because the demand for tickets is so high, because we've only got 3 games or whatever it is every year. But they just feel like somebody could do more about the reselling of tickets, because as soon as the tickets go on sale the following day, somebody's selling off tickets at 10 times the face value or whatever the following day. How does that happen? But
one of the local TV stations, one of the Green Bay TV stations, Channel 11, WLUK, they have their local reporter, Rachel Monick. She's over there, and they're kind of doing the Packers fans in London every day. And even already today, she said it's a green and gold invasion of the city. Tell me about the city itself. Where do you live? What have you seen? Is there, for all these NFL games, is there a general gathering area that they want fans to go? Where are people finding themselves, and have you noticed the green and gold?
Yeah, so there's a lot of green and gold about. So I'm just outside London, but there's a lot of green and gold in this area. But actually, downtown London, there's a real lot of green and gold, and it's the last couple of days. The number of there's green and gold everywhere. So there's people flying in. I guess most fans are kind of flying in the middle of this week. So we're now Wednesday, so people getting in today, tomorrow, Friday. Lots of Packer fans around. And what they typically do with these games is they designate some bars in London which become a Packers bar for the week, or a Vikings, no, I shouldn't say that, a Saints bar for the week, or a Giants bar.
It's fair, they were there last week. It's okay.
That's why it came to my mind.
Yeah.
So the Packers they've nominated a couple of bars that are kind of Packers bars this week, which are pretty close to each other in central London. So they've got a big Packers pep rally on Saturday.
Are you going?
The plan is I'll be there.
Fantastic.
So Mark Murphy's there, Leroy Butler, James Jones, Nick Collins, I believe, Mark Fleming.
Leroy had on his Twitter page, he was there yesterday already.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about social media. We've connected with the French Packer fans, and through our tailgate party in Green Bay, the Irish, the Scottish, and the British ones that have come by and visited us. I want to put this out there. In fact, the group of guys that are connected with the diehard Packer fans in Green Bay, it's the Packers of Scotland. They're calling it their inaugural meetup. And it is at All Bar 1 Waterloo, 1-3 Chichley Street, Chichley Street in London. And that's going to be Saturday night. The time on it says 7:30 p.m. to late. So if you get a chance, Peter, go meet the Packers of Scotland at All Bar 1 Waterloo.
I'll probably check that out. I think that's one of the great things about it. So I've, like you guys, I've connected over the years with lots of Packers fans over social media, you know, Facebook, Twitter, Zoom, et cetera. But there's a whole bunch of them that I call friends that I've never yet met. So that's good. That's going to be a great thing. And I think that's one of the things. It's one of my biggest impressions always about being a Packer fan, right? From the first time that I came to Green Bay, yes, it was about the football. Yes, it was about the team. But you know, it was more about the relationships and the friendships that you make. And that has been my strongest thing about being a win, lose or tie. The strongest thing about being a Packers fan is the friendships and the relationships that I've made over, 40 plus years. It's been fantastic.
Well, that was the question I forgot to ask you during prep, whether you've been to Green Bay. So you have. When was your Green Bay trip?
So I became a Packers fan in the late 70s. My next door neighbor. So I'm in an area of the UK where there's lots of US Air Force bases from World War II. Now there's fewer now, but my next door neighbor was from the local US Air Force base, and he was from Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh, okay.
Huge Packer fan. Got me started as a kid. And back in those days, it was a lot easier to go on base. Obviously, it was pre 9/11 and all of that.
Yeah.
And so I got to go on base and see games on TV there on the American Forces TV service. And he showed me how to listen in to the American Forces Network radio.
Okay.
So I heard a lot more games on radio than I ever saw on TV growing up as a kid. And then I made my first trip to Green Bay in the 90s. And through a mutual friend, I got to know Red Cochran, who was then a scout for the Packers, had been, Vince's offensive coordinator in the 60s, and was lucky to strike up a really good relationship, good friendship with Red and his wife, Pat. And so every time I came back to Green Bay, I stayed with them.
Wow.
And it was absolutely,
That's
times
awesome.
that are irreplaceable times. So, yeah, I mean, every trip I've made to Green Bay has been fantastic. It's been a few years now since I've been, so it's been a few years since I've seen the Packers play live, which is another great thing for Sunday. But yeah, I mean, I just absolutely love it. Now, what's difficult for me is my wife is from Texas, right? So she grew up as a Houston Oilers fan, so she doesn't even have a team really, but she likes to claim that she's a Cowboys fan. So
I'm married to somebody who's from Texas and was raised as a Cowboys fan too, so I understand your pain here.
Yes.
But yeah, over recent years, that's not been so bad. It wasn't so great, back in the 90s, but now it's not so bad now.
It's cooled off a bit, I guess, as the Cowboys have had less success.
So what is your ability for watching the game? Is the streaming situation currently just great as far as that's concerned, and you're essentially able to see everything you want by streaming as long as you're willing to stay up late?
Yeah, so we now have, we get the Sunday night game, the Monday night game, the Thursday night game, all live. Oh. We also get two games on a Sunday live, so the noon kickoff and the 3 p.m. kickoff. We get, but you don't get a choice of which ones those are. So yeah. But yeah, so I subscribe, and many people here do, to NFL Game Pass, which in essence gives you the ability to watch any game you want to watch. Yeah. So, yeah, and that's a wonderful thing. When I think back now to trying to tune in to the American Forces Network all those years ago, and you had to have the radio in exactly the right place, and it would fade in and out. And late on a Sunday evening, you'd get the Spanish opera singer would come. So it'd be late in the game. Team was driving down for the go-ahead score, and all of a sudden the game would fade out, and there'd be this Spanish opera singer, and then he'd fade out, and the game would fade back in, and you'd try to work out what was going on. But that's part of the fun of it. And now looking back now, I think, how on earth did I ever do that? But
yeah, well, that's all you had, and you were a fan, and that's. Yeah. You stuck with it. And yeah, to look back, technology, like I said, you get the games on, and obviously the NFL is becoming or trying to market themselves more globally for fans. But I want to get back to, you've been to Green Bay, you've talked about Green Bay, and you're not the first person, or will be the last probably of guests that we've had on here that mentioned that about Green Bay. It's great. Packers are fun, but it's that, meeting the people, it's the camaraderie, it's that small town piece that you just, it's either there or it's not. It's genuine. It's not, airs are not put on. It is a genuine thing when you go there. And when I took my wife there, who's a native Minnesotan, she couldn't believe it. She's just like, everybody's so nice and friendly and just, offer you a beer or whatever. And it's just like that. And so, to hear you say that, it's affirming. I mean, we already know this, but just, we're glad that the message continues to come through.
Yeah. And I've had the opportunity to talk through social media with lots of fans over here, and everybody that I've spoken to has that similar experience. People are, we're welcomed into people's houses. They don't know us from Adam, but we're welcomed into people's houses. Like I say, I used to stay with Red and Pat, and it is one of the.
That's awesome.
It's for me, that's what kind of made it. I mean, yes, you want to support a winning team. We all want to do that, but like you guys, when you grow up watching that team, listening in my case to that team through the late 70s and the 80s, winning, not so much. It is more about the relationships, the fun, and that kind of thing, which has made it what it is.
So a different question about the relationships that you have with people. So as you have noted, I'm an Arsenal fan, and I became an Arsenal fan because I went to a pub in London and watched some match that we won with a late goal, 87th minute goal or something like that. And, the whole pub erupts, and I thought the floor was going to collapse. And, for me, the collective experience of being an Arsenal fan has been central to how Arsenal fandom has been built. And I think that's pretty important throughout the United States. Have you had these similar types of situations in the UK where you've been, gone to Packers bars, or at least watched some games collectively, that you're able to do this collective experience as Packers fans in the UK?
So there's a Packers group over here, UK and Irish Packers, which is a fan group which has been going about 10 years or so now, and every year they have meetups during the season, not so much during COVID, obviously, but in previous years to that. They also organise a trip to Lambeau every year, and so that's given a number of Packers fans over here the opportunity to kind of get together and have that kind of meet and greet. Yeah, exactly that. Put names to faces and all of that, faces to names and all of that kind of thing. But it's I guess it's like lots of sports, but I think that, I don't know, I'll be walking down the street sometime and there'll be somebody in a Packers jacket that I don't know, but you immediately strike up that relationship, that talking about, you've got a shared something, a shared experience, whatever it is, that it's cool. And I think, and I think in fairness, I think sports does give people that, whichever sport they like or whichever team they follow. But there's just something special about the Packers.
There just seems to be like more the nth degree when it's the Packers versus, any other sport. I know we just as a sidelight, we traveled, the three of us, this summer through Canada and to Alaska, and we specifically wore Packer gear, and we were greeted, yes, lots of people, and I'm from Green Bay, or I'm from Wisconsin or whatever, and we were thousands of miles from there, and it didn't matter. So to your point, that does seem to be a very common situation, certainly with Packers. I think sporting in general, but that extra little, I would say, personal touch, but regarding Packers fans.
So Sunday, what's your plan? What are you going to do pregame?
So my plan is, I've got a couple of guys who's coming over from Wisconsin, and we're going to the pep rally on Saturday, and then Sunday. So there's a bar that opens at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Very good.
It's either 8 or 9. I can't remember which now. But it's
You're
called
going to make them open at 8 o'clock.
Yeah. It's called the Number 8 Bar, which is right near the stadium. So for other Packers fans who listen to this in the UK, that seems to be the place pre-game. And yeah, it's that's where we'll be from early in the morning until I don't know what time we'll roll into the stadium itself.
Okay.
Kickoff's at 2:30 here.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's kind of the plan, is just to, like you say, meet and greet and have fun, and then head into the game, see the Packers win, and then decide what we're going to do afterwards.
So that sounds like a normal pre-game and post-game football plan for every time that I've been in London for an Arsenal match.
So the only thing we don't, well, say the only thing, one of the things we don't really do, we just haven't got the hang of, is tailgating. Right. And part of that is because I think because it's never come naturally to us, but also because our stadiums are in funny places.
It's a space issue. Yeah.
It is a space. It's exactly that. It is exactly that. Yeah.
Well, and that's true in a lot of, like, here in Minnesota, where US Bank Stadium is here for the Vikings, it's urban, right? So there's not a lot of, open space, and therefore there's not a lot of tailgating that takes place.
But you'd guess for Sunday's game, 90% plus of the people are probably going to go by train of some sort, right? So that's hard to sort of bring your grill along, bring your Weber grill along on the tube.
They frown upon that. Yeah, flammables and.
Yeah, but you mentioned the train, and particularly the underground. That's one of the great things about London as a city, is that you could stay anywhere in London and hop the underground and be the other side of London in 10 or 15 minutes. It's so easy to get around. I've had people from the States, from Wisconsin in particular, kind of contact me saying, well, we've booked this hotel in such and such a part of London. Are we going to be close to anything? Everywhere's close to something in London, because there's lots of stuff there, but B, because of the underground, you can get around so easily. So it's a great city to have an NFL game in.
Peter, what's your assessment for the game itself? How do you like the 3-1 Packers, and what do you think they're going to be bringing to the table on Sunday against the Giants?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's one of those games that before the season, when you run through the schedule and you say win, loss, win, you come out with 16-1 record or 17-0, whatever it is. But it's one of those games that you think that's. I would imagine that we all had that marked down as a win, based on the Packers and based on where the Giants have been in recent seasons.
That is a correct statement. Yes.
What's interesting, just as an aside, this is the first London game where both teams are going into the game with a winning record, which
that really surprised me. I thought,
I guess
it's sad, really. I mean,
it is sad. I guess it's a comment on perhaps some of the teams that we've had here. We get the Jags a lot, so that
that does bring the winning percentage down. But
I think the thing so I'm naturally a little bit of a pessimist, right? So I think the thing that worries me about Sunday, so the Packers defense is ranked 5th overall, but it's ranked 22nd against the run.
Mm-hmm.
Giants have got the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL.
Yes, they do.
And Saquon Barkley is finally the Saquon Barkley that everybody thought he was going to be coming out of college, injury-free and all that stuff. And I think that's the concern for me is the Packers defense, player for player on paper, I think that's good. Are they living up to that billing on the field?
Mm-hmm.
And that's my concern, is their ability to stop the run and the ability to stop Saquon Barkley. And if you look at last week's game, we all knew the Patriots were going to run the ball. Everybody knew the Patriots were going to run the ball. That's coming into the game. That's before Brian Hoyer got injured, before Bailey Zappi came into that game, and yet we still couldn't stop the run.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my big concern about Sunday's game. That's the only way you feel like the Giants can beat the Packers, barring some strange bounces of the ball or whatever, barring Rodgers having another first half like he had last week.
I hope that's not possible. I mean, that was like literally a career low.
That's in a career. Right.
Yeah, that was. We'll just pretend that didn't happen.
So it's that for me. That's the key for me. And the Packers, like I say, on paper, that Packers defense is strong. It's 5th overall. Player for player, it's pretty strong. It's just that ability to stop the run, especially when you know they're going to run the ball, and the Giants are going to run the ball, and they'll keep running it until the Packers stop them. That's my concern. Having said all of that, the Packers have found a way throughout the season to get off the field on 3rd down, and that ultimately is how you win football games. And it feels a little bit like a bend but don't break defense right now. And it feels, and I'm no expert in this, it feels a little bit passive, but yeah, I mean, that's a long answer to your question. It's that
Good answer though.
It's the run defense. If the run defense shows up, then the Packers win. I think that's the answer, really.
You know, with the numbers he threw out there, as the saying goes, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Statistically, the Detroit Lions have the top scoring offense in the league, but their point differential is -1 right now through 4 games. That doesn't really go together too well. So yeah, where we are, it's the eye test, really. And certainly we were talking about it earlier, there are some players that are just really showing themselves that they can get anywhere on the field, in Rashawn Gary and Quay Walker. And not only can they get anywhere, but they're laying the lumber. They're really putting some hits on. And that's what we've been just chomping for years, is to have some type of dominating defense and a player or two that is going to strike some level of fear into either a quarterback dropping back or a running back out in the flat trying to catch a little pass or something along those lines. And I think it's there with especially those 2 players. And you get, everybody doing their job, starting up front where Kenny Clark is doing his job. Jaron Reed is showing off a little bit here and there. And our other linebacker, Devondre Campbell, is doing well. Our defensive backs, even though it's been kind of a patchwork now with Jair's injury, but I think that it's coming together. And then, yeah, I think between Gary and Walker, I think we could see some good domination, and hopefully they are ready for that run game.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so, and I think this game in particular is one of those games where you have to feel the Giants are one-dimensional on offense, and it's one of those games that, while it stays close, it's going to be close. If it's a game the Packers jump out to a 14-0 lead relatively early, you can see that it turning into I hate to use the word rout, but let's just say a big relatively easy canter to a victory.
Well, you know what? That would be a refreshing change of pace.
It would.
Yeah. That's just not
that would
that
be
Green Bay
great,
does.
actually.
Yeah, we kind of talked about how Kansas City, they had the lead. Was it Kansas City? No, it
was Kansas City. Yeah, and they kept
the San Francisco game. Yeah, Kansas City, where you've got the lead, but you're not just playing to run out the clock. You are continuing to play to score. And that's what they were doing late. And that is just something that really has never been in Green Bay. And it has been maybe a bit passive on the offense that way as well, that, okay, we've got a lead, let's just play to hold it. And from a fan perspective, that's no fun. We want to score again.
Well, and oftentimes
score again.
Yeah, the play not to lose, you lose, so, and that's, so it's kind of, it's the mentality, right? It's you want to just, I mean, there's all kinds of, passive, aggressive, violent kind of terms for it. Pick one, but just finish them off, just be done. Show, if you're being the aggressor, continue to be the aggressor.
But I think there's a difference this year for the Packers in that we do have that 1-2 punch at running back. And so we do have the ability to hold out a lead in a way, sort of like the 90s Packers did as well, where we just ground them down with the running game. And we've got the running backs and the offensive line this year that we're able to actually do that. So I think,
but that's right. And that's a smart way to do it. Right.
Right. I think we have to just get used to that and just not expect us to go past crazy when we've got a 2-touchdown lead, when we just need to kill clock.
Right. But it would be nice to have the 2-touchdown lead first.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. At every
Let's
level,
get there
Jeffrey,
first, and then we'll watch them run it the rest of the game. That's fine with me. Just get the 2-touchdown lead. And, to the point is that if the Packers do manage to have a very good first quarter, first half, get a couple touchdown lead, Yeah, I think that suddenly the one-dimensional Giants will try and maybe pass the ball, which is, we'll see what happens. But no, I think you're absolutely right. And, that'll be a good problem to have. But if it's close and it's really a nail biter, then hopefully they will find a way to win like they did the last couple of weeks versus, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
Talking
We don't
about
want that.
moving the ball in the offensive line, the word coming out. So David Bakhtiari is back, ready to play. He's going to be, in that left tackle spot starting and playing the game, which then begs the question, what happens to Josh Nijman, who was there and they were splitting time. Early speculation this week is that Nijman would go to right tackle and allow Elton Jenkins to move back to guard where he flourishes. Adam Stenovich, though, made the comment today that Elton is probably going to stay at right tackle because he's their best option at right tackle. And quite frankly, saying, where, Elton is the best option. I think Elton is the best option at 4 out of the 5 spots on the offensive line as it is. I think eventually he moves inside and maybe Josh just isn't ready to go there. But either way, having, we talked about that in our preseason look at the team, having that as your bookends, Bakhtiari and Jenkins, and then with Myers in the middle, if he snaps the effing ball when Rodgers wants him to snap the ball, he'll be fine.
There's that, but other than that, he's a great, he's.
So I think the line is coming around. I think that, it's that commitment to the run game, that another thing that we've been begging for 30 years, because we've had great quarterback play, but we've also had decent running backs throughout the years as well. That commitment to run. And if we can do that, I think having that ball control offense with a lead will be nice as well.
So what's you'll be at the game. What's your final prediction? You said a Packers win, but what do you think? We'll put you on the spot here.
So my gut feel is something like Packers 23, Giants 14. That kind of score. So
well, that covers the spread.
4 and a bit. Yeah,
the spread is, depending on where you look, 7.5 or 8 right now.
Is it really that high?
Yeah. So the New England game was 9.5, and I knew that we weren't going to blow out New England in that one. But yeah, 7.5 is still pretty good. 8, depending on where you look. Who knows? That might move to 6.5, might move to 8.5. You always got to pay attention to it. But yeah, Green Bay just doesn't have that history of blowing out a team and holding on to it. But that's a good score, though, Peter. That covers the spread at 23-14. That's what, 4 scoring drives to 2. I'll take that.
So I have one other question related to the game then. Are you going to be able to develop some Packers chants that we can now bring back to the United States and have chanting become a thing at NFL games?
Now, that's a great question. I don't know the answer today, but I'll let you know afterwards. We'll see if we come up with any.
Please do, because I would love to see it.
So where can people that are paying attention right now, where can they find you online? Where are you going to be posting? Are you going to be posting to Twitter, or where are you going to be posting this weekend for your adventures?
Yeah, so the best place is Twitter. I post quite a lot on there. So it's at @the_IT_hedgehog. That's quite a mouthful, but that's where you find me on Twitter. And yeah, I post a lot about nearly all Packers stuff on there. Okay. Occasional photos of my dogs, but the rest of it's Packers. and usually when it's my dogs dressed in Packers gear. So
excellent. Well, we'll make sure we get your information up and link to it. What kind of dogs do you have?
I've got two English Cocker Spaniels.
Beautiful.
Who are way too smart for their own good.
So, Peter, we want to thank you for your time. You stayed up late. We really appreciate you and your perspective of being a Packers fan in London, letting us know what's going on there. We will definitely link to you on Twitter. We'll follow your adventures this weekend, and we hope that you have a great time, and go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go. And I just want to say thank you for having me on, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on and talk some Packers football. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your commitment.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed meeting you.
And if you're not lucky enough to be in London like Peter is, to go to the Packer game, where can you watch the Packer game this weekend? In the Green Bay area, quite a few bars are going to be opened up in the stadium district for sure. I've seen that the bar and Doozies are going to be open. The Chicago Street Grill in De Pere is open. where my friend Scott hangs out, part of the Lot 1, now Lot 9 tailgate. Scott hangs out at the South Chase Saloon in Pulaski. It's actually in the town of Chase. They're going to be open, and they're going to be doing some good stuff for the Packer game. And Neil, you and I are going to be over at the Green Bay Distillery. We've got a Packer game and then the Arsenal match after that as well, right?
That's right. We're going to be at watching with the Green Bay Armory, which is the Green Bay Arsenal supporters group. We've got 2 hours of just the Packers, and then we're going to have to share the Packers with Arsenal, and you're going to hear a lot of cheering for the Arsenal and a lot of chanting as far as the game is concerned, and a lot of discussion about the problem with where the Packers and Giants game is being played, which is at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, our biggest rival.
And another pitch for the Green Bay Distillery. Got some Green Bay gin tonight. They are not paying us for that. I just felt like telling them, hey, it's pretty good stuff. It was pretty mild, not too bad. All right. With that, our opponent for the game, the New York Giants. Jeff, you've got some news and notes from their most recent game.
That's right. So last week, week 4, Neil and I watched the Giants-Bears game, so you didn't have to. It was not a fantastic display of quarterbacking. It was pretty pathetic, actually. As Peter mentioned earlier in the segment regarding Saquon Barkley, he was an animal in this game and ran over the Bears defense. The reason why that was needed, now they came away, they won 20-14, which was kind of shocking considering of their quarterbacking. They had 71 net yards passing, and that was 2 quarterbacks worth. Tyrod Taylor did get concussed, so he was out of the game, but it was a very not good display, not good grammar either, but not a good display of current quarterbacking skills. But they did rush for 262 yards. Barkley had 146 of it. And Jones, the quarterback, until he hurt his ankle, he had 6 rushes on 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. For whatever reason, the Bears said, hey, we're going to let him run. And he ran until he got hurt. So what does this mean for the game? Like Peter said, the Giants are going to run the ball. Neil, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is what their entire game is predicated in this. The top Giants wide receiver in that game had 3 receptions for 23 yards. 23 yards in the year 2022. In the year 2022. They had almost 4 times as many rushing yards as they had passing yards. And what was particularly offensive at this game is that the Bears did the exact same thing, right? Justin Fields was 11 for 22. The one thing you worry about as far as that is concerned is that Justin Fields was sacked 6 times. And so they certainly have the pass rush to go after Aaron Rodgers. So there are elements of this game that certainly are potentially worrying, given that that's been our biggest weak spot, has been stopping the run. And then they've got the ability to stop the pass with their front 4.
And I think, Neil, looking at the game, we've talked about it already, even with Peter and our plans for the season. We're looking at this game as a win, 7.5, the point spread right now. It's tight. I don't know if Green Bay covers it. I think it'll be it's going to feel like the New England game again, but we can hope for a blowout like Peter said as well. But there's a history between these 2 teams for sure, being 2 of the oldest franchises in the National Football League, Neil.
2 of the oldest franchises, and 2 franchises that were good at the same time for a long period. Unlike the Packers-Bears with their very thin playoff history, or their very thin history as far as being competitive at the same time, the Packers have played the Giants for the NFL title in some way or another 8 times, with an additional 3 playoff appearances. So overall, the Packers are 34, 26, and 2 in the series. The Packers are 5 and 3 in the postseason. But going right back to the earliest days of the NFL, the early days of the NFL, in the 20s, there was no title game. So in 27, the number 1 team in the NFL was the Giants. Number 2 was the Packers. 1929, number 1 team was the Packers. Number 2 is the Giants. The Packers and Giants played twice at City Stadium and at the Polo Grounds. 1930, 1 and 2 were the Packers and Giants. And then as far as NFL championship games, 1938, won by the Giants. 1939, won by the Packers. 1944, won by the Packers. 1961, 37-0, the biggest victory in this series. The Packers won the NFL championship in 1962 when the Packers won the NFL championship over the Giants 16-7. So a lot of history in addition to the recent history, the NFC championship game in 2007, the painful loss in 2011 when we were 15-1, and then the very glorious game in the 2016 playoffs when we had the Randall Cobb Hail Mary at the end of the first half that ended up being part of a blowout Packers win that sort of got us over this, the Giants being the team that's always going to kill us in the playoffs recently. So one other element as far as the game is concerned, we talked to Peter about how we want to see chanting at NFL stadiums. And so I am wearing my Arsenal shirt for this version of the podcast. And I'm wearing it because the game is in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which is Arsenal's biggest rivals. And so last week, Jeff and I watched the Vikings game in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and hearing the announcers praising the Vikings and the Tottenham Hotspur at the same time was just nauseating to me as a Packers and Arsenal fan. But the chants are sort of what I would like to come back. This is what NFL or American sports globally needs. So what do we think of Tottenham? Shit. What do we think of shit? Tottenham. Thank you. That's all right. We hate Tottenham. We hate Tottenham. We hate Tottenham. We hate Tottenham. We are the Tottenham haters.
Yes, you took great umbrage with a tweet, actually, when the announcers were praising both. It was, and you did send the chants to us as well. I cannot do them justice. I'm not going to sing tonight.
The wanky Tottenham Hotspur went to Rome to see the Pope. The wanky Tottenham Hotspur went to Rome to see the Pope. The wanky Tottenham Hotspur went to Rome to see the Pope. And this is what he said. Fuck off. Who's that team we call the Arsenal? Who's that team we all adore? We're the boys in red and white, and we're fucking dynamite. And Antonio Conte's mother is a whore. She's a whore. We could go on and do a number of that.
And
Wow.
American chants just are not the same, are they?
They're not, clearly not. No.
That is not a go Pack go type chant.
No.
We won the league at Shite Hart Lane. We won the league at Shite Hart Lane. But yes, the full use of the English language, it's something that all of us appreciate, something that George Carlin would appreciate, and it's absolutely present in the chants at English soccer matches. And this certainly is part of the appeal to me, but I just love chanting. I think that coming up with new songs is really one of the beautiful things about soccer, learning the new songs as new players start to become stars. And I would love to have an Aaron Rodgers chant or have a Randall Cobb chant or anything like that.
You just assigned the task to yourself for the weekend, Neil, and we'll get it out on our social media. And with that, we are expanding our social media footprint. You've been able to find us on Twitter and Facebook at Green Bay Chat. That same at Green Bay Chat, all one word, is now on Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. I am still too old to understand Snapchat, but I'm working on it. And what we're looking forward to being able to do is just share our story when we go to games, and especially our trip to Buffalo. So please give us an ad on all of those. And we'll be posting that on Twitter as well. As always, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit subscribe and feel free to leave a comment. You guys, it's been a long show, truncated a bit. We're taking out the Packer player of the past. We'll move that to next week. Anything else you have for this week?
Today was a glorious day in Nobel Prize history. The Nobel Prize is over my shoulder. Bioorthogonal chemistry, Caroline Bertozzi, Morton Meldal, and Barry Sharpless are the winners, and congratulations to them.
I have nothing as important to say as what it's a Nobel Prize. I just hope for a good game. I'll be thinking of Peter and all of the Packer fans that are journeying over for a safe trip over to London. I hope it's everything that they hope it to be, and I'm looking forward to a blowout victory. There, all right, I said it.
There you go. Big thanks to Peter in London for joining us. For everybody getting up early on Sunday, enjoy the game. And you can find the GBC podcast at Green Bay Chat on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat, and on Facebook at the GBC podcast Green Bay Chat. And may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Good night.